Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Geico of Mobile, the first podcast to bring you the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We've got a great fishing report today, and it's all made possible with the support of our local businesses. This week's sponsor is your local Geico insurance office. Everybody knows Geico has great auto rates, but did you know they also have great rates on boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft? Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Not only will Ron work hard to get you the lowest premium possible, but you'll have the service you expect and can count on if you ever need to make a claim. Geico does even more than insure your valuable items. They also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling these services with your insurance. If you're an Alabama saltwater fisherman, support the local insurance agent who brings you the fishing report each week. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-AL. I am Butch Theory, and I am joined today by the man, the myth, the legend, the marshal of the Mississippi Sound. How are we doing today, Captain Bobby?
Man, I want you to say that 10 times fast.
I got a little tongue-tied there already.
You did good, though, man. You did good. You know, and talking about your sponsors, too, I just want to mention again, like Geico and the other sponsors you have, you guys work hard at this show, and they're the reasons that you guys do it, and get to do it, So I'm just kind of echoing what you said about supporting the sponsors of the show. So.
Absolutely. It's been pretty cool how the community, the fishing community here just supports their own. Mm-hmm. Geico insures my boat. We just try to take care of our own, Everybody's been loving the slick lure and going to see Geico and supporting our local sponsors. So I really appreciate you saying that for sure.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, man, it's good to be here and let me turn knobs and push buttons again, man.
Heck yeah. Got to. I need some help. I need all the help I can get.
No, he's got my hands tied behind my back again, guys. He won't let me touch anything.
Well, we touched some fish yesterday.
We did, man. We did.
That was fun. Me and Jay Williamson from KillerDock, and we even got old Joe on the boat.
Got Joe on the boat.
Got Big Papa Joe on the boat, and we had fun, man.
Man, I'll tell you, I had a blast. It's just so much fun to get on the boat with I get to fish with all levels of experience, but when I can get to do what I did yesterday, which was, one, get in the water, which I'm in heaven when I'm wading. I just don't get a chance to do it nearly enough. And then just get to watch, guys that pick up a rod, know what to do with it, and, and I get to just take fish off. That was a lot of fun. And that also allowed me to do some scouting. And we'll talk about, I guess, in a second. But, when I have experience on the boat and fishing, catching fish certainly is a priority. But, it was one of those kind of things where, catching was not maybe the number one priority, just looking. Right. That was a lot of fun to me. So that kind of thing's a treat for me. I enjoy finding fish. I love catching fish, don't get me wrong. I love watching people catch fish. But to me, the most satisfying thing is finding and patterning and understanding stuff.
Figuring out the science behind it.
Yeah, I saw a T-shirt one time that was talking about speckled trout that said easy to catch, hard to find, easy to catch, and so the key is the finding them and understanding them, and so I got to do some of that. So, and to be on the boat with some friends too, that was a lot of fun too.
We had a good time, man.
You guys pick at each other so much, it's a hoot. I can just see it. Yeah, I can see this competition that goes on and the picking.
It wasn't much competition yesterday. Jay smoked our butts most of the day.
I was thinking about it actually, and it was so funny because of the few different things we did. We were in the water. Jay smoked everybody, and he caught fish kind of all day long. And then Joe got hot when we were out in the bay, and then you made this incredible fourth quarter comeback when we got out on these flats.
Yep, and firework.
I mean, you put it on everybody at the end, so it was so fun. Everybody got a hot stick at some point.
True.
Everybody on the boat except me had a hot stick yesterday.
Oh, but you were helping us, though. Yeah, we ended up. We were a little bit stubborn. We all wanted to go wade fishing in the morning. We probably could have done something a little bit different. But it was pretty nice and slick in the morning.
Well, we missed, and from a condition standpoint, we missed the best conditions to actually be catching fish when we were wading. But we all wanted to do it,
right.
And I was pushing that more. And actually, I kind of wanted to do it a little bit more. But as we get into the trip a little bit more to talk about it, but the area that we were able to fish is just not really turned, and I'm doing air quotes here, but turned on yet. And but there's fish. Obviously, we caught some nice fish, but it isn't like it really should be yet. And I don't know why, because typically by mid-May we're into them pretty good. But I don't know if it's a behind thing, if the flooding, whatever. But I was so glad we got to do it. And when I looked at the weather when I got up that morning and looked at the weather, I said, oh, man, that's the worst wind we could get. But it slowly clocked around to where it was bearable, and but I was looking so much forward to that. I think I was telling Joe when we were running down there, it's one of those kind of trips I look forward to where I hope I don't wake up in the middle of the night, because if I do, I ain't going back to sleep. And that's what happened. I woke up and I was going oh man, so.
Yeah. Joe kept me up late when we got up early, so you know how that goes. Number one thing that I noticed yesterday morning, first thing, was I was up to my chest and I could see my feet crystal clear.
Yeah.
The water was insanely clear.
Insanely clear, yep.
Do you think that hurt us or helped us?
No, it helps in the fact that they can see the bait early, but when you get in clear water like that, it's a low light deal, and you better be, like we were in the water when it was still dark, and we had been moving for a little while before the sun even started to clear. So you've got to fish that on clear water conditions like that, because that water's clear like that. So it hurts you. They got to be able to see the bait, but on the flip side of that, they're seeing too much of it when it gets up, I think, especially for an ambush feeding fish. So if you had like a cloud cover day, that could last a lot longer. But so to your question, it hurt us probably a little later in the morning, but it helped us probably early. So it's kind of a fine line right there. I don't like, and I don't think any fisherman that I know of likes fishing gin clear water, shallow wise. So if you're going to do that, you got to do it like we did. I mean, we were back in the boat. We were back at Jay's house.
8:30?
No, we pulled back into his house at quarter to 8.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we'd already waited. I'd gone back and got the boat, picked y'all up, ran back to his house. So we were in the water, fished, and back at his house at quarter to 8.
Yeah.
So we probably could have been back there before that if we weren't being so hard headed.
Right.
But I, as usual, get carried away and wait.
There was just a ton of bait though. I mean, it seemed like every time, like you said yesterday, 10 times. As soon as you'd be like, all right, I'm going to get the boat, Jay would catch one.
Yeah, that's right.
We trickled out top water for quite some time, and Jay kept on the top water, kept on it, and it paid off for him.
Yep, that's right.
I switched to a slick kind of early because it was a little rough. Once we got around that point, it slicked off, and that's when he started hammering on top water.
Right. And
should have kept my top water on.
Yeah, I know. And I told him that. Just about the time I switched, I got off the top water. Just about the time I got off that, we hit a school of fish because I got bit like 3 times, missed 3 in a row on a slick, and then he caught one on the top water. And I said, God, I wish I left my top water, but I didn't want to stop right then because I knew we'd hit. And 3 casts in a row, I had probably 10 bites, and I whiffed all 10 of them. It was terrible, man. If we'd have been in a tournament, I probably would have broke my rod and had to walk back and get another rod.
It's a long walk.
It's a long walk, and that was only about half the wade. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. I just enjoy that, and the conditions. It's so nice down there where we fished, and just a great start to the day,
Yeah, for sure. Definitely nice fishing in the middle of the week.
And the fish, the numbers weren't great. I think we only caught 6 or 7 fish or whatever we caught, but they were all giant. That's the least.
Just waiting.
You trade off. There's a trade-off there from numbers to quality. But there's plenty of times where you get on the right weight at the right time, and you can have both. You can catch numbers and quality. And, talking about fishing a little later in the morning like that too, what I do is, if we were going to keep doing it, what happens a lot of times, and I was telling Jay this when we were walking, is the bigger fish are going to be right on the beach, which is where they were, right up against the beach. But what I'd start doing a lot of times is, if I want to run some numbers up when those fish get in there in decent numbers, those bars that we kept wading across that were going like almost perpendicular to the beach, you'll catch those buck trout, those schools of male trout out off the tips of those bars. And so a lot of times I'll start casting out a little, and it's a little deeper out there too, but sometimes you'll hit those and you will run up some numbers. When I say run up numbers, I'm talking like 25 or 30 fish on a wade, which to me, doing that is pretty decent. Yeah, that's a pretty decent number of fish.
That's keeping you pretty busy.
That's keeping you busy. You're right. Between taking fish off and, and finding them again, that sort of thing. So that's what you do. That's what I do. But the numbers aren't quite there yet. I don't know why. Maybe it's just a little bit late this year because the conditions are right. The water's clear. Like you said, there's tons of bait down there. So it ain't going to be long.
Maybe the long spring, cooler temperatures.
Could be cool. It was cool. I mean, we got in the water. Everybody kind of was ready for that little shock when we eased over, because nobody was in waders. But, typically by now it's a little bit warmer than that. Even though yesterday I turned on my temperature gauge in my boat, and the water temperature later in the day was 78. So, but that's kind of right around where that's the mid-May number. Usually about mid-May I'm looking at 75 degrees. So we're not too far off from that. But it was cool when we got in the morning.
It was nice, man. Yesterday was perfect temperature. I don't think I broke a sweat all day until we came back and were cleaning fish.
Fine. Well, of course, by then the wind was probably blowing 15 or 18 knots by the time we came in, so that helps out some too.
Oh, it was gassing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it picked up. Started started blowing over, we started fishing those popping corks a little bit.
Well, that's and then we just, that was my first trip out in the bay this year, this spring for sure. And of course the bay's been so flooded. Well, it's finally cleared up. And even though there were patches of, it still wasn't clear everywhere out there, but it was obviously clear enough, because a couple places that we stopped in the bay, we caught fish on bait. By then we were about using bait, so that told me that there's some fish down at the lower end of the bay. And again, that was my first trip out there in the bay this year.
Was yesterday our little you say deep rig fishing? Was that typical?
That was that was probably a little.
Of course, we had a little bit interesting conditions. We didn't have much tide.
We had zero
blowing.
tide current movement, and if we had, where the wind was blowing a gale, and if it wouldn't have been, we would have been like fishing on a lake.
Yeah.
We'd have thrown those corks out there, and they would have just sat there, and so it was just a wind drift is all you were getting. But that rig fishing, and as to me with any structure fishing, deep structure fishing is very current sensitive. You got to have some water movement to make that really work well.
Well, you got to cover the ground.
You got to let because we were throwing out there, and you guys were throwing out there, and even with the wind and your cork, it's got to drift to the fish, and it's not so much that the current helps the bite, but your cork is basically just moving along so slow you're not getting them to the fish fast enough. So the bite would be a little bit better because you're getting to the bait to the
cover
fish.
More water.
Yeah, and it just where they were and the way we were set up, it was just taking a little while for the corks to get to them. So
we still got them.
Oh, yeah. And then when we finished up, they're drifting some of that shallow stuff, which is really what I've been doing. I haven't done any deep water fishing. Matter of fact, we were joking about it when I grabbed a couple of my slip cork rods. Yeah. You throw them out there, they were screaming, And that's how little I've used my slip cork since last year. And but when we got on that flat down there, that's which is more along the lines of what I've been doing is that's where you really got them there.
That was fun.
That's where everybody was getting mad. Every time I look up, Butch would have another fish, and he was throwing right in the middle of the other guy's corks.
Joe's cork hit my cork one time, and my cork went away. And I was like, what? And had him on. And Joe was like, what is happening?
Oh, that was so much fun watching that take place, man.
Yeah, we have some good friendly competition with those guys for sure. Well, all right, man, let's get into this thing. You ready to get the reports?
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
I look forward to them, man. I can't wait to hear these.
Me too. Hopefully we got some good stuff. Let's head on down to Orange Beach, Alabama, Sam's Bait and Tackle, and see what Chris Vecsey is up to. What's going on down there, Chris? What you guys got going on around that Orange Beach area?
Well, it's pretty crazy down here. Obviously, this week snapper season starts, so everybody is coming in, getting ready for that. Tomorrow will be real crazy, but I don't know. Everybody's doing a little bit of everything. Beach fishing is still, pretty red hot when it's not, blown out too bad. But even some of the windy days we had this week, we had good numbers of pompano, a lot of really big whiting. Spanish were in close, speckled trout bit well. I mean, it's been a pretty good bite overall.
You just been getting to the beach super early for those speckled trout still and throwing top water?
Yeah, I've been throwing a mix of things. Honestly, I haven't been catching as many on top water. It's mostly been subsurface plugs, primarily twitch baits. In the past week, we've gone down there. Me and a couple of buddies have been catching some on the fly rods in the surf on this calm afternoon. Honestly, early morning is not like super early. I haven't been catching any trout. It's actually been a later morning bite, and I don't know if that's just timing it with the tides or what. There's been a couple factors there that have definitely led to when I've been catching my trout, when I haven't, and we can talk about that in a bit, of course, too. But it's really been a later morning bite and even an afternoon bite.
Well, that's great. What kind of twitch baits you been throwing?
Mostly fish in it's the unfair. It's called the rip and slash. It's size is a 70. It's like 2.5, 2 3/4 inch twitch bait. Pretty much any natural bait fish color has been working. But because the ladyfish have been in pretty thick, how you work it has been a lot more deciding on whether you're catching a trout versus catching, a ladyfish or a bluefish. If you keep that thing working too fast, twitching it too much, the ladyfish are on it left and right. And what I've been finding is that a simple, just one hard twitch followed by like a 5 to 6 second, it's almost unbearable. It's always at the right at the height of the pauses when I'm hooking those trout. But if I keep that plug moving, just thump, 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 the ladyfish are on it constantly. So less twitching, more pausing.
Chris, on that size bait that you're using right there, I'm assuming you're throwing those on a spinning rod, right?
Yeah, primarily. Yeah. I can throw them on a bait caster. Yeah. That size there is about as small as I'll throw on a bait caster. You get much lighter than that. If they can on something too small, you have to use a spinning rod. Right.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you using braid on that spinning rod when you're using that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you put a leader on there, like a fluorocarbon leader on there to your
Yeah,
braid?
I use if I'm beach trout fishing, I typically use 20-pound fluoro. If the ladyfish and stuff just give me too much grief, then sometimes I'll jump to 30, even 40-pound. It's amazing how many big beach trout I've caught on 40-pound leader. They just don't seem, when they get in the surf zone, it's like a different animal. They just don't seem to be as line shy.
Right. That's what I was kind of getting at with that. I was just kind of curious because the water you guys deal with over there, and I'm assuming when you're on the beaches, you're really talking about way clearer than what I'm used to over on the west side. And so that's kind of what I was getting at with that.
It's been pretty clear. Yeah, it's been pretty clear. I go ahead and tie on about 3 to 4 feet of that fluorocarbon. That way as you're cutting, you're going to have to cut back and retie, of course, as the leader gets damaged. That way I'm spending less time tying new leader sections on.
Right, and even though you're in the business, that fluorocarbon leader ain't the cheapest stuff in the world either.
No, absolutely
I'm like you.
Not.
I'm going like
some are cheaper than others, but I've really learned with fluorocarbon. I'm sure you have too, Bobby. It's like if you get cheap fluorocarbon, you usually get what you pay for.
That's
Either
right.
It's softer. It has. It doesn't have as good knot strength. Cheap fluorocarbon to me is exactly that. It's cheap fluorocarbon. I'd rather spend a little bit more money and get the good stuff, so to speak.
Yep, and that's what I know exactly what you're saying on that. Some of my rigs I'll have if it starts to get a little bit too short, I'll save myself that 18 inches and splice in another piece rather than just to save myself 18 inches. Call me cheap, and Butch
that adds up though.
It adds up, man. I'm going
and
I'll have customers going like, "Oh, would you splice in a smaller diameter?" I said, "No, I'm just cheap, man. I don't want to waste that 18 inches. I wanted to get it back to 3 feet, so I spliced in 2 more feet of line.
I love it.
But I was just curious about that on that. How line shy those fish are over there, and that clear. You guys again dealing with clearer water than what we deal with. I want to ask you another question on that beach. Are you fishing the beach trout closer to the passes that you guys have over there? Are they all the way down the length of the beach from the pass all the way to say Fort Morgan on the bar systems, or do you have to stay near those passes?
No, I actually catch them on pretty much the full stretch. Like if I was gonna, like I get some of my customers from Pensacola, for example, are like, well, why don't we have trout on our beaches over here? And I honestly can't answer that. I don't know if it's a combination of the salinity or what it is, but the primary stretch, if you want to catch a trout on the beaches here, is going to be from Perdido Pass to Fort Morgan, but you can catch them anywhere along that stretch.
Wow, that's a lot of water.
I'd say my biggest. Some of my biggest trout I've ever, thrown on, especially on days when it's calm and clear and I can sight cast, is, between West Pass and Veterans Road down Fort Morgan, just that big open stretch.
Wow,
you get a lot of very big trout in those troughs.
Yeah, that's a lot of water too. That's interesting right there, because that's just a lot of water, and I guess whether just relating to the holes, but washes out between the first bar and the beach, I guess, right?
Yep, it's usually that first trough within 100 feet of the water line is where you're going to catch most of your trout.
Man, that is interesting stuff right there. That's a completely different type of fishing, than even we're fishing the same state, same
fish,
coastline. It's amazing.
It's funny how it is. And anytime I get to talking about it with anybody, I always tell them it's like these beach trout, it's like a different species. They act different. They feed different. Everything's different about them.
What are they on there? I mean, what are they feeding? What's their prey down on that?
Well, that's the thing, is they can be pretty, I guess they have to be a little more opportunistic when they're on the beach, because they can be feeding on anything from 1 inch long anchovy and small, LY and stuff to, 7-8 inch mullet, big croakers. One thing a lot of people don't realize about the beach trout, especially April and May versus when we get later in season, they eat a lot of squid. You get a lot of those little squid on the beach and in the bays that are, you've seen them probably if you've ever been shrimping around here. They're 2 to 3 inches long, just little white ones. Plenty of the beach trout that I catch will cough those little squid up at times.
And you said the right word about trout, by the way, too, and anywhere you go, that's an opportunistic feeder there. They feed on what's around,
Yep.
And that's, I don't even think about squid, but I know that I've talked to biologists about it. And they say that is a big, big part of their diet is squid. Now, if you can ever figure out how to imitate a squid with an artificial bait,
thinking in my mind.
or how you could put one on a hook and make it look natural, that's a whole different ball game. But yeah, I don't even think about squid as that. But I've heard that a number of times that's a good natural prey of theirs.
Well, there are some small artificial squid. Savage Gear just came out with a really great one that I want to put to work on the beach. But a few years ago, I had a buddy of mine, Heath Hipple, who has Bugs Fishing Lures from Texas. Heath ties these really beautiful little hair jigs and stuff that imitate crabs, shrimp, really good sight fishing tools for redfish in particular. But they work on a lot of things. But I had thrown Heath a message. I'd just gotten off the beach that morning. I'd caught redfish, I'd caught trout, I caught flounder, and everything was full of squid.
Wow.
I mean, you could tell they were that's what they're gorging on, for the previous couple of days. And anyway, I got him to send me, he tied up these squid bugs for me. And they were absolutely awesome looking. He said he might make them one day, but he's kind of gun shy on it. Anyway, I might have to send Butch a picture of one a little bit to show you.
Yeah,
but,
I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one from Savage Gear is going to be a winner on these beach fish and definitely on the flounder.
That's interesting stuff. I'd like to see that myself.
Me too. Yeah, let's talk pompano a little
it's
bit.
Beautiful.
What's going on with the pomps down there, man?
Oh, they're still chomping. I mean, even like I said, a couple of days this week, the water was pretty ugly, and it didn't matter. People are still catching them, but this was like a week of I'd have certain customers message me, man, I've been fishing here for 3 hours this morning and, haven't gotten a bite. And, they're like, is the pompano bite just off? Well, the thing is you're not far from where they're fishing. There's guys catching pompanos. Not only is positioning everything, but I think one of the last times I was on the show and we were talking about surf fishing, I pointed out that if you're staying in a spot for realistically more than an hour and you haven't gotten a single hit, it's time to move. And that just demonstrates it. If you've been sitting in a spot and you don't have a bite and there's guys catching fish right down the beach from you, it's time to get on your feet and get going. It sucks having to reset everything or even get in your vehicle and drive somewhere, but you came to catch fish. You need to do what you need to do to catch fish.
That's right. You got to stick and move if it's not happening.
Yep.
I think that was the last time you were on. You were talking about that.
Yep.
What's going on with the pomp stomp?
Pomp stomp. That's right. We're into the third week now, so not much has changed. I've only weighed 2 fish over 3 pounds this month so far, so hopefully we'll see some more coming in. Seems like the start of the month there were still some of those bigger fish around, but there were way more big fish in April. That's for sure.
Chris, have you caught any permit late or heard any about any permit being caught?
Not in the last, I'd say the past week and a half, not so much, but through the spring we've been catching them sporadically. And you know how the permit that we do catch here are usually not very big, but
let me stop you right there.
Mark and I were talking about this in the shop the other day. Permit have become a common catch.
That's unbelievable.
Whereas 5 years ago, if somebody caught a permit, they were sending me a picture like, man, is this what I think it is?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody does that anymore. Everybody's just like, oh, we caught, 5 pompano, a couple permit, a blue, it's now a casual thing in conversation. It's not as big a deal as it used to be.
Well, when a second ago, I started to stop you because you went like, well, you know how the permit are. I'm going like, no, I don't know how the permit are because I've never caught one. And you guys are throwing
obviously we catch them a little more often than you do to the west, but yeah, it still just fascinates me that, and you just touched on it. It's just a commonplace thing. Whereas I remember when one was caught, and I think it was caught off the jetties down there, like you said, 4 or 5 years ago, and it was the talk of the town,
right?
Because I guess on paper it was a state record because none had ever been caught,
Yep.
And now it's so common, like you said, it's just not news anymore. Where to me, it still fascinates me that we got that is that common. One, that we had any at all, but that is that common now.
Yeah, I don't know where they came from.
And you see schools of it's sometimes it's not 1 or 2. You might get in a school of them where you'll literally catch 8 or 9 of them. And size wise, they're still mostly small. But I think it was 2 years ago, a gentleman caught one off the beach at the East Jetty that was just shy of 10 pounds. It was like 9.9 pounds. Somebody sent me the picture. They're like, isn't this like considered a state record? And you're like, yeah, of course it was. But I don't think the gentleman weighed it in as a record. I think he just stuck in his cooler and took it home for dinner.
Jeez.
That's a big mistake right there for any species, man. It's just, having the opportunity to catch a state record, especially if something like that, or any kind of, I'm doing air quotes right here, glamour fish, to me, that's, I don't want to start on this whole tangent right here, but man, if you get a state record, man, they're hard to come by, and,
yes, sir.
so pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah, I'll never hear the end of Joe Baya apparently eating the Florida state record pompano.
Oh, man.
He's got a picture of it on the scale at his house, and it's more than the state record.
Oh, gosh, we could go. I bet
keep in mind the state record for Florida should be the IGFA world record as well.
Really?
How big was it?
Oh, I don't remember. I really don't remember.
The IGFA world record, all tackle record, was caught in Port St. Joe.
How
so
big?
I would have to imagine that's the same as the state record, I would think.
I want to say it was like 3.86 or something. 3.16. Did I make that up?
Oh, no, it's bigger than that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Can't even believe a word Joe says.
Yeah,
Photoshop.
That's still a big pompano, man. To me, it is. Anyway,
anytime you cross 3 pounds, you've got a solid fish. 4 pounds, obviously, even more so. Our state record here is a little over 6 pounds now. You're talking. That's a heck of a fish, 6 pounds on a pompano, especially when you consider how hard they fight for their size.
That's what I was going to say. The little bitty, but ones I'm catching, and you and I were talking about this off the air, but the very few that I ever catch, every time we catch one, I'm going like, man, I have got to get better at this. But I'm catching ones that are barely legal, and man, I've got the net running around thinking it's either a big trout or a dug-in redfish or something, and it comes up and it's a 14 or 15-inch pompano. Man, I'm going like, man, these things are cool fish.
They're pretty too. Did I say Joe ate the state record pompano?
Yeah,
I meant whiting. If I said pompano. Replace that.
So
you said whiting.
So it's not Joe. It's not Joe that we shoot from.
It's me. It's me. I don't know.
Well, these offshore guys,
That's right.
Okay, well now you're saying that 3.8 pounds on a whiting.
I want to say it was 3.1 or 3.8.
That's a stud there.
I'm sure he'll correct us.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, that's a good report, man. We got to get that onshore tip from you. This week's onshore tip is brought to us by Fishbites. Are you tired of stinking baits? Fishbites don't stink or leave a stink on hands and everything else. They don't require bait buckets or ice to stay fresh while you fish. Fishbites can withstand numbers of bait stealers for many, many minutes. They won't come off the hook during a hard cast or in rough waters either. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits and tackle at fishbites.com. So thanks for a tip this week, bud.
Probably the biggest tip I could give anybody that wants to go out on the beach in that zone that we talked about, along the, from say Fort Morgan to Perdido Pass. For the last 2 weeks, trout fishing on the beach, if I get on the beach and I don't see the presence of bait, there's got to be some kind of bait. And most of the time you think, well, how am I, if the water's a little stirred up or whatever. These fish have been congregating around pretty decent schools of, I guess they're small, sardine or anchovy or whatever, but literally for 2 weeks now, if I don't have bait in front of me, I'm not catching trout. So when you get on the beach, first thing you need to look for birds diving, look for that, what looks like, almost like rain on the surface, and look for slicks, slick areas where you can tell fish have been feeding, where you have fish oil in the water. But any of the areas I'm fishing where I'm not seeing the presence of bait, I'm not catching trout. So, you got to find the bait to find the fish right now. There's usually a lot of times through the summer where I'm catching those fish even when I'm not seeing that, but that just hasn't been the case here lately. It's been a desert unless there's that food supply, that abundant food supply.
That's a great tip there. That's good information, and it makes a lot, when you're fishing is such a big piece of water that you're talking about right there, that really helps you narrow something. Yeah, that really helps you, narrow it down there. That's a great
can you imagine just like if you don't have some kind of visual cue of any kind and you have a stretch of beach like I talked about where you're literally talking 30 miles.
Yeah, where do you even start?
And it all looks the same. It all looks the same.
Cover water. Yeah. Well, what water? It's a lot of water to cover.
Heck yeah, it is.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you eliminate a lot of it looking for that bait. That's a great tip.
Yep.
All right, Chris, we appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you guys. Go check out Chris Vecsey down at Sam's Bait and Tackle. He'll get you set up with some new fishing gear, some new beach fishing gear, a swordfish setup. He's the man. You guys go see him. We appreciate it, Chris. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right, thank you.
All right, man. That was a lot of fun talking to Chris. I love hearing from that side of the world over there, and so now we get to kind of come back sort of to our side of the world because this cat right here fishes all over the bay. He's on the eastern shore. He's on the north side. I run into him down in my world down there in the Sound. And this is Captain Ugly Fishing, by the way, not Captain Ugly Patric. This is Captain Ugly Fishing, Patric Garmeson. Man, you guys check out what he's got to say.
What you say, Patrick? What's going on, bud?
Shoot, man, just a nice day.
That
got
GPS tracker.
Got the boat all washed up and ready to do it again tomorrow. We get into kind of want to step back and talk a little bit about what I've seen over the last week or so. I actually had the kind of the gumption to go run a few trips out of the causeway last week, and man, we had some really good days catching a lot of redfish all up and down, all around the causeway, from deeper water fishing like free line shrimp to fishing shallow flats and grass lines and stuff like that for reds, catching them on popping corks, and that was a lot of fun. I had some real good customers that were interested in catching redfish, and so that was fun last week. To anybody who's interested, I mean, the water's really, really improved up on the north end of the bay. So if that's your stomping grounds, you're looking just to get out and wet the line close to home, I mean, that's a good game plan right now. And then sliding into this week, I opted for doing more trout fishing, and the lower end of the bay, the east side of the bay, man, you got to kind of dig around a little bit. There's some areas that got beat up real bad from that west and southwest wind, where the water's pretty churned up, but there are some pockets of clean water, and if you can find those around some reefs, that's where I've found a lot of my best speckled trout action is a lot of the reefs that are, say, like 8 feet deep and deeper. It's not to say that some of the shallower reefs aren't going to produce as well, but I don't know. I get a little bit antsy when I drop my trolling motor down and I can't even see the trolling motor head at all. So I don't stick it out real long in those areas. I go kind of hunting for some cleaner water when I'm trout fishing, but pretty much been sticking with live shrimp. Haven't done a whole lot of artificial. We have caught a few on some little slicks, but for as far as my customers are concerned, I've been keeping them on the live shrimp. So that's kind of bringing it full circle for the last week. So anyway, got any questions for me?
What you just said about your trolling motor, I went like, that's exactly what I do, man. You drop that trolling motor down, and that's a great tip. For anybody trout fishing is, if you're using a trolling motor, and even if you're not, I remember way back before we used to use trolling motors on these saltwater boats, the old timers, I guess I'm an old timer now, but the old timers used to tell me, they used to say, if you couldn't see your lower unit of your big motor, you're not in clear enough water to trout fish. And that's exactly what I do, and a lot of guys will do. Now, if I can't see the head of that trolling motor, it's just flat out too muddy to trout fish. So you guys, listen to what he's talking about right there. That's a real good barometer of water clarity right there, is just to look at your trolling motor node. You drop that down there, and the saltwater trolling motors are white. So if you can't see that, you sure enough are in some muddy water, Great tip, dude.
That's right. And that, I mean, and we caught a few trout in that dirtier water, but it just, man, it's like pulling teeth. You just got to be real patient, kind of weed through some croakers and some trash fish bites and stuff. So it's not worth sticking it out, in my opinion. So if I'm like gonna dedicate the first 2, 3, 4 hours of my day to trout fishing, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time in muddier water if I have other options. Now, if I don't have any other options to get out of the muddy water, I'm going to change gears and get into more of a red fishing mode, because those guys will bite in 3 inches of visibility. You don't need 18 or 20 inches of visibility to have a good redfish day.
They're using their sense of smell a lot more than the trout do, so you're right.
Right.
Yep. Great tips, man.
We saw we ran into a couple schools of birds yesterday. We didn't really see any big. It was kind of rough though. We didn't see any really big slicks or anything. You seen any big schools of birds starting to pop up or anything, Patric?
Man, I really haven't. I'm always looking for them. Really, the last time I saw like real good bird activity was when I was over in the Sound pre-full moon. But I mean, that feels like decades ago now. I mean, just looking back at how, it's been several weeks ago, but I mean, that was the last time we saw some real good bird activity. But no, I mean, I've been doing, like I said, leaving out of the Eastern Shore and then up on the causeway. There's not a tremendous amount of bait on the causeway, which I think is a little bit helpful to where if you wanted to go up there and throw artificial bait and just throw artificial bait exclusively, you could probably do a good bit of damage on some redfish up there. we did catch a handful of trout, but man, the few keeper trout that we caught were all females, and none of them seemed to have like any kind of roe. So I'm wondering if Bobby, you were talking about it the other day about how big the roe sacks are on those lower end of bay fish. But I'm wondering if because it's so much fresh water, it's just held those trout up from responding to any kind of spawning activity. So, as that water gets saltier up on the north end of the bay, I think you're going to see a lot better action, like trout action, and possibly having some other opportunities up there. But anyway, that was something that I noticed when we did clean a few fish the other day.
You hit the nail on the head. I think that's exactly what's going on, because they have to have a fairly high degree of salinity to spawn, and the difference between where you're at, even though it's clearing up there, that salinity level has just not gotten there yet. And 2 months ago, it wasn't like it is now from that. Exactly what you're talking about. The roe sacks were tiny, pale yellow sacks, but some of the fish, like the fish we caught yesterday, weighed and were just, we didn't keep any of them, but man, if you'd have cleaned, they were giant, and they were so loaded. But we were in water that Butch and I were talking about before we went on the air. We were in, waist chest deep water in low light conditions, and you still could see your feet. That's how salty and clear it was, and so that's exactly, I think, is what you hit the nail on the head, because that they're not going to start spawning, true spawning, until they get that right salinity, until they get into that right salinity. And again, 2 months ago, the fish I was keeping had those little pale sacks in them that just, they're not even close to getting ready to spawn. Whereas now, even the smaller trout that we're keeping to eat, man, they're just giants. For the size fish, are just giant roe sacks in them. Kind of breaks your heart to even keep one of those, even though they're 17, 18 inches. Those females are so loaded up with roe right now.
I would agree with you there, Bobby. A lot of the fish that we caught today were drumming, so even the 18, 19 inches that we did run across, it was it doesn't hurt my feelings as bad to throw one that's drumming on ice.
Right,
that size.
I got a friend of mine that drumming, he used to call that the croak of death, because that was the only ones we ever kept with the males. Yeah, the croak of death is what he used to call that.
That might be something. That might be a good philosophy in the future, right?
That's right. If they drum, they die.
No doubt.
Yeah. I'll tell you one of the things I was going to add. A lot of what I've found has been the most successful, especially like as we're going into this nip tide, really slow water movement, is doing more free lining my live shrimp. I used to be like an exclusive treble hook guy, especially with live shrimp. And man, I've switched over to like using that 1/0 Kale hook, like I was talking about using for sheephead back in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a little bit bigger hook that I would prefer to use, but the shrimp that are accessible right now, they're pretty good size, and you can put a 1/0 hook Kale hook on the horn of the size shrimp that we're seeing at a lot of these bait shops, and that shrimp can swim naturally. It might weight him down a little bit to start sinking them, but overall he's still able to swim around with that hook. And when these trout or redfish, whatever you're catching, when they hit that shrimp, even if you have some slack line and it takes a second before you feel the bite, feel the fish, and tighten up on it, most of the time that hook is burying in the corner of that fish's mouth, and we're really not seeing a lot of gut hooked fish. So even if you're out there fun fishing and doing a lot of tagging and catch and releasing or whatever, that's a good hook choice for minimizing your fish mortality. So that's kind of the last thing I was going to add there, Butch.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's actually interesting. I don't know if I've ever fished that way. So whenever you're free lining a shrimp, I mean, it's you just have braid to a leader to a 1/0 hook.
That's it. That's it. And
when is that applicable?
Whenever I'm free lining, I'm always horn hooking my shrimp. There's very rare cases where I'll tail hook a shrimp, but for almost 99% of the time, I'm going to have them hooked in the horn or right under the horn, and just let him swim and do his thing. And as long as that hook is not too big to weight him down to where he's not able to swim and carry that hook around naturally, then the hook size is okay. And,
dragging the hook around the bottom.
And that's been a good way for us to be able to hook fish. 'Cause we did a lot of tagging redfish up on the causeway, and I already heard a buddy of mine sent me a tag, and he sent me a tag ID. He said, "Hey, is this one of your redfish?" And it was like 2 days after we tagged it. I said, "Yep, that's one of ours." So
that's cool.
So anyway, it's pretty cool to see that already happening, and we tagged some really nice trout today out in the bay. So be curious to see those guys pop up again in a report.
For sure, man. Well, whenever you're freelining these shrimp, is that whenever you're fishing shallow water grass? Is that when you're fishing a reef? When would that be applicable? When would be the best time to do that? Sorry for my ignorance. I've just never done that before.
That can vary anywhere from, say, 3 feet deep to as much as 20 feet deep. And some of that goes into kind of identifying how the fish are reacting, maybe seeing them on the fish finder or whatever. But there's some different variables that I would go into that. But most of the time it's going to be when I have very light current and I really need to fish that entire water column. And especially when you, like this time of year when the brown shrimp are pretty accessible. Brown shrimp you can throw them in the water and they seem to want to like naturally swim towards the bottom, as opposed to like a white shrimp. He'll sit there and swim right on top of the water all day long, just be happy and content till a bird picks him up. But the bait choice that we have right now is a real good option for doing some free lining.
All right, man. Sorry to go on that tangent. I just had to know a little bit more about that. I'm not familiar with the shrimp slack line.
No, man. I encourage questions.
Yeah, I'm learning. I try to learn as much as I can from you guys every time.
We all are.
That's right, buddy. All right, man. This week's Hey Cap is brought to us by Daycool Heating and Air. As the saying goes, if you don't like the weather in South Alabama, wait 10 minutes because it's going to change. But one of the things that is very predictable is the pricing at Daycool Heating and Air. They offer flat rate pricing and they don't charge for after hours calls. Let's face it, your HVAC always acts up whenever you seem to need it the most. Don't get stuck between a rock and a hot place. Daycool offers flat $45 service calls, $59 tune-ups, and they offer free estimates on equipment replacement. The pros at Daycool have been serving Mobile and Baldwin counties for over a decade. Contact them at 251-633-5121 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com or on the Daycool Heating and Air mobile app. They are license number AL07028. All right, Lawrence Smith is going to bring us the Hey Cap question this week. Lawrence says, "Hey Cap, when fishing the deep structure around the bay, what is the best method to finding the depth of the fish, especially at the deeper rigs?"
The structure is in the bay and the sound is the 4 R's: rigs, wrecks, reefs, and rock piles.
That's right.
You didn't get it? Let's see,
W.
Rex.
I got it.
You got it. I can't believe it, man.
Hey,
Butch ain't no grad, buddy. He's sharp, buddy. You
If
sharp
there's
as
one-
you're about sharp as a bowling ball. I can
quick.
tell you, it didn't go past him. But that you could, he said rigs, but you could throw in any of that kind of structure. Oh, and I guess we could call it the 5 R's because you got the reefs, wrecks, rigs, rock piles, and range markers, right?
Range markers.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking too.
The 5 R's. Yeah.
Yep, all kind of them R's.
Yeah, I picked this question from Lawrence because I knew I was going to have Captain Bobby on today, and I figured y'all could nerd out on it. What you think, man?
Yeah, I think that's a great question.
It's applicable. I think that's about to be coming up here pretty soon.
Starting to move into that time of the year. So how am I going to find the fish at the depth? So if I have free range of the structure without any other boats on it, I'm going to turn my Ray Marine to side vision, down vision, sonar, all of that onto my machine. Like I'll have it divided up into 3 quadrants, and I'm going to either if it's shallower, say like 8 foot deep and less, I'm probably just going to drop the trolling motor over, kill the big motor, and just troll the motor around that area for maybe just take and cover the whole thing if you need to. I mean, some of these reefs aren't really big, and you can cover them with the trolling motor in probably 2 or 3 minutes. And looking at your electronics, a lot of times you're going to see a zone where you're marking fish more consistently, and they could be. Sometimes you got to look at it. You got to look at it real close, because sometimes they're going to be really, really tight to the bottom, and those fish typically going to try to catch with a slip cork that I've got set basically on the bottom, where it's just like barely skimming the bottom and not getting hung up. But utilizing those electronics is how I'm going to go about any open reef or rig or wreck or whatever, where I can take a look, scan it, see where I see my biggest marks, my best looking fish. And it takes some time. I mean, we talk about it a lot. You got to get to know your electronics to understand what your particular setup looks like and where you're going to see fish. But doing it as a practice every single time and then trying to identify them is going to be helpful. So say for instance, I make a pass over a wreck that's 10 or just say 12 feet deep, and I mark fish pretty steadily at 8 feet deep. Well, and I have three customers on the boat. I'm not going to set a slip cork at 8 feet deep and put all three people at 8 feet deep. I'm going to set one slip cork at 8 feet deep. I'm probably going to have one of them even throw a popping cork, because you never know when there's going to be one up higher. And then I'm going to have one, if the conditions allow it, where it's not too windy or too swift a current, then I'm going to go with a free line shrimp. And all of those are going to help me kind of cover the water column pretty well. But if that 8 foot deep slip cork gets hit first, then I'm gonna pretty much just go with, hey, I was right at what I read on my machine, and that's where the fish are. And I'll probably go ahead and get at least the second angler switched over to that 8 foot deep slip cork, and then probably I need to see at least one more bite at that depth before I take my third angler off of whatever he or she was doing to commit fully into that. But a lot of times what you're going to find is you're going to see where there's going to be some marks kind of throughout the water column, or you may see more bait in one area, and a free line or just a little tiny split shot on a free line shrimp or pogey or whatever your bait of choice is, something that where you can literally throw it out, it's going to land and slowly sink all the way to the bottom. If you're covering the water column really slowly, then it doesn't really, it's not as, it doesn't have to be as precise as saying, all right, I have to have my slip cork set at 8 feet deep, because these fish may be kind of moving up and down through the water column, and you're just going to present a bait that's sinking slowly through the water that they're going to find as it sinks past them. So that's essentially what I'm going to do on any rig or reef or any type of structure that's say like 6 feet deep and deeper.
And I'll tell you what, that's exactly right. Typically you're going to find that to Lawrence's question, you're going to find that they're going to be in the lower third of the water column. So if you're fishing a 10 or 12 foot deep piece of structure, you're going to want to fish 8 to like Patrick was talking about, where you're just ticking the bottom right there. But there is the occasion where sometimes, and I find that it happens typically when it's like mirror slick calm and there's no tide, those fish will move way up in the water column. And a shallow popping cork, it's very rare when you got a lot of current that they'll move that high up in the water column. Typically, going to find them in the lower third
with more current.
With more current, and but if you catch those mirror slick days where the cork won't even move, that's when I put on a popping cork. But the other thing, like Patrick mentioned too, this is what I do. I do exactly what he's talking about. He's covering the whole water column with his anglers, and that's one of the advantages that we do have as guides, because we're going to have multiple anglers on the boat, and so I can do testing. I can do it, and it's amazing sometimes, even in something like a 12-foot rig, where 1 foot of depth will make a difference. 1 foot will make a difference. You can put a slip cork at 8, 10, 11, and 12, and the guy at 11 is getting bit and nobody else is, and it's amazing. Now, sometimes it doesn't matter. When they're eating the rod tips off, as long as you're close, you're okay. Right. But there are times when that 1 foot makes a difference, and to what Patrick said, he talked about it. He said, pay attention to the guy that's getting the bite, because that's where you need to have everything set.
Yep.
And I'm lucky if I even have my sonar turned on. So I'm not nearly as adept as Patric and some of those guys are. They've gotten really good at finding fish with those electronics. I'm not nearly there yet, so I still do it kind of the old-fashioned ways. I'll make several drifts at different depths. And to his point, that's exactly what you're going to find is they're going to want it at a certain depth, and it can vary from day to day or time of the day, time of the tide. So you got to kind of play around with those depths a little bit.
I'm gonna extract a tip that I learned yesterday from Captain Bobby. I learned that from you yesterday about how to know how far down your slip cork is. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Well, because I was fussing with it.
Yeah. Well, when you're setting a slip cork, in a slip cork rig, I got them on my website, Patric. I'm sure you do too. It's, we don't have enough time to explain how to rig one up. So you want to go look at the diagram. But the gist of it is there's a little piece of thread or whatever type of stopper you're using. I use the thread type that I tie on the line. And so
that's going to stop your cork from going any further.
In other words, your line will go through till it hits a bead, then hits the cork and blah, 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 all the way down. So that bead, that thread is adjustable, and that's how you change your depth. And so to make it real easy, if you wanted to put, if you were fishing a 15-foot rig, you would go, okay, well, here's my stopper. I'm going to put it at the end of my rod, and I got to have 15 feet of line laying all over the boat.
Which is what I did yesterday.
Well, and everybody does that, But if you take for example, it doesn't matter what length rod you're using, but let's just say I was using a 7-foot rod, and just assume that the butt of the rod is 18 inches. So that leaves me 5.5 feet up to the tip from the butt, and then 5.5 feet back down. So what I do is we put the bobber stopper reel it up till it's right at the start of the butt, and then put the hook next to that. That's 11 feet. 5.5 up, 5.5 down. And it's all right there on the rod. So if I need 2 more feet, I can just pull it out that way or shallow it up 2 feet. So you don't have all that line laying all over the place. And by the time you do all that, as you well know, and anybody that's ever done it, when all that crap's laying around on the boat, guess what happens to it?
Yeah. You're going to get a triple.
Everybody.
Hookup too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You got everybody tangled up. So it's just a real easy way to measure it off. If you got whatever length of rod you do, just measure it off, just double it up and down on your rod, and it's a real easy way to get your depth set real quick. And one other thing on depth, and this happened to us yesterday, by the way, and I don't remember who it was, but who was it, Jay, that caught a big red fish?
Jay caught a big red.
Jay. All right, so what happens a lot of times with those stoppers, when you hook a big fish like a red, like he did, or a jack, and they're pulling, that cork is pushing that knot up the line. And so you'll find, you go like, wait a minute, all of a sudden now I'm at 30 feet. So, and it not just on a big fish, but a lot of times when you're on a hot bite, you want your bobber stopper tight enough that it doesn't slip, but not so tight that you can't adjust it. So pay attention to your depth sometimes. You'll notice sometimes you're catching fish, and all of a sudden you're not. Yeah, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So just every once in a while, just after you catch a fish and you go to bait up, just make that quick check with your line, make sure you're at the right depth, and you go back to fishing. Because like you said, you just change that depth just a little bit sometimes, and you'll get right out of the fish.
Yep.
I see it every single year. Every year, every time we're catching fish on slip corks, that I've got somebody that gets real hot and they're catching fish, and all of a sudden they go cold. And I've got somebody else catching fish occasionally, and then I go back to the person that was catching fish like crazy and find that they're not slid up or down or whatever. It could be as small as 2 feet.
Yep.
1.5 feet, 2 feet means a world of difference in the slip cork world. And man, you can go from whacking them every cast and not catching anything, and then make that adjustment, fix that, and then get them back in their zone where they were hot, and then they go right back to catching.
Absolutely. Yep. We've seen it. And so, that's the thing, is keep an eye on that depth, man. When you get them dialed in, make sure you know what depth you're at in case it does slip, because it's going to make a difference.
Yep. Oh, yeah. That's
right.
That's a
and
great
I do
answer.
the same thing, measuring with my rod. I use pretty much all 7-foot rods for my slip corks, and just measure it by the length of the rod, and
let her dig.
And go from there. You don't have to have lines strung out from one end of the boat to the other.
Whatever.
Hey, you ain't the only one. You're not the only one.
Well, I figured if I could, put my hook on the trolling motor and run it back 25 feet, then I could know where.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what people do.
Well, Bobby, I got a question for you. The slip cork depth is always always a little bit of an interesting conversation. everybody measures it a little bit different. Do you measure your depth to the hook or to the weight?
I measure it to the hook, and it's funny you say that, because one time Richard and I were fishing. I don't know how we ended up fishing together, and I'm going like, no, you and so and my brother does the same thing. He measures it to the weight, and they're going like, well, no, the shrimp's swimming around, so the depth is set to the weight.
I see that too.
Yeah, I measure it to the hook, and is what I've always done. You know?
I say the hook because. Yeah. Well, the hook's going to be what gets caught on the bottom.
Well, yeah, that's right. And that's, to me, that weight of that hook is going to keep that shrimp down there. Well, what do you do?
I go to the weight.
Do you? That's wild.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I always go to the weight.
Well, let me ask you this. So if you say you're fishing a 12-foot deep rig or wreck or whatever you're fishing, 12-foot piece of structure, so you want to fish it at 8 feet, or 10 feet, you're putting the weight at 10 feet.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why
I'm putting the weight at. I measure everything to the weight, and then I manage. If I start getting hung up, then it usually tells me that my bait isn't able to keep up with my hook size or something like that. So then I may have to downsize on my hook to where my bait can swim my hook and keep it up out of the structure.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. So I've had that conversation, and really I think the first time I ever talked about it was either with my brother or with Richard, and I was going like, no, it's to the hook. I mean, so there's no right or way. It's just whatever you like to do, but mine's always to the hook, so.
I like
fine. Everybody has their own
That's
way.
That's it. I mean, I don't. It's kind of like
Kyle Menernite. He always measured it to the hook too.
Yeah.
So he and I were working on a trip one day, and he called me and was like, "Man, this bite's pretty hot over here. It's 8 feet deep." And I come over there and set mine 8 feet deep and couldn't get a bite. And I was like, "Wait a minute, are you to the weight or to the hook?" He said, "To the hook. That's the only way to measure it." And I dang sure, man, I measured it out 8 feet to the hook and started catching them.
That's right. But for you, that would have been you would have been in your case, for example, if you're using a 2-foot leader, you'd have been. He should have told you, or vice versa. He should have told you 6 feet. So it doesn't matter. And like I said, as long as you're both talking apples to apples, you know, and
you just got to know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
That's good. That's awesome, Captain Patric. I love that conversation there. I'm glad we got off on that. Man, that's a great report and a great Hey Cap question. We appreciate that, Lawrence. Lawrence is going to get a prize pack from the Slick Lure. Lawrence, make sure you email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com to redeem your Slick Lures. Send us your address to that email address. Y'all make sure you get in the Hey Cap questions at alabama@bestfishingreport.com, and we'll get you in the running for those Slick Lure Hey Cap prize packages. We appreciate you, Captain Patric. If people want to book a trip, I'm sure you're booking up. Fishing's getting hot, man. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Man, if they know what they want, they can go straight to the website, click book now, and find an open date on the on my Fishing Chaos calendar and just go ahead and book it. If they need some conversation and want to kind of talk through what they're looking for, they can text me and I'll get back to them as quickly as I can. Or they can call me at 251-747-1554, and we'll figure out what they're looking for, how we can accommodate, and get them on the books. But I've got I think I've got 3 or 4 dates open in June, towards the end of June, and then still have a good bit of availability in July and August. So
nice.
Anybody looking to get out there and do something new or whatever, I mean, I do my best to accommodate. Give me a shout. And I'm also doing that, still doing my fishing group text. So if you want to be a part of that, I usually get 2 or 3 guys sign up each week, and that's just send me a text 251-747-1554, and just in the message just say add the fishing text, and I'll get you added. But anyway, that's about it, man.
Awesome, Cap. We appreciate it, man. Keep whacking them. We'll talk to you soon.
Great job, brother.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good one. Thanks for having me.
Yep, you too. All right, Captain Bobby. Let's get our last report. Let's head offshore. We'll head down to Orange Beach, Alabama, and see what Captain Dustin Bedgood's up to with Fed Up Charters. What you say, Captain Dustin?
Nothing much, guys.
How you doing today? You been fishing?
Yeah, I did some inshore fishing today.
Nice.
I'm back home now. Hear thunder outside, so I'm glad I'm back.
Yeah, no doubt. Good timing.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit offshore, man. I know you caught some tuna and you've been sword fishing some. Tell us a little bit about the tuna. Where'd you guys get them and what are they biting?
Yeah, we went back out to the same area that marlin, ram, beer can. The water was blue everywhere. It seemed like, as
That's
soon
awesome.
as it got daylight for us, it was blue water around. We got out there, and I mean everything was blue, little scattered grass. It was extremely rough. Me and a friend of mine, we both went out together. He was in the 37, and I was in the 33, and he beat us there by about 20, 30 minutes.
Dang.
And we carried a bunch of live bait out there. We didn't catch it. We actually got somebody delivered it to us over in Orange Beach, and
That's nice.
we went out and went straight to we went straight out to the rig and pulled up, and I dumped a bunch of live baits out in my same routine and put 3 baits out, and I kind of drove away from them. And it wasn't just a second. As soon as we put the clickers on, they all 3 went off. We fought the fish up there. 2 of them were sharks. One of them was a nice tuna for like 50, 60 pounds. We put that in the boat. Captain Mike was beside me. They put a small fish in the boat, several sharks. They had a small tuna on that got ate by a blue marlin. I had seen him twice at the rig the week before, or a blue marlin, and it seemed like the same fish. He was doing the same thing. He was chasing the tunas. Every time they would come up, he would chase them up, and they happened to have a small fish on it. He ate it, and the fish peeled off like 200 or 300 yards of line in just a second, and they broke him off. He tail whipped the leader. But it's the tuna fishing is pretty good if you got the right bait. There seems to be a pretty good bit of bait around Orange Beach.
That's awesome.
I didn't go out and try to catch the bait. Some of the guys I went with, they went out and caught some greenbacks or thread fins around the pier and some of those inshore reefs and stuff. So they had some pretty good bait that the fish reacted to. But I don't know. It seemed like we didn't get out there till a little later because it was rough, and it seemed like the fish were already done with their thing for the day, and that's the way it's been the last few times we've been there. If you're not there for that morning bite, we haven't been getting as much action because we leave and go do something else. I usually head sword fishing as soon as I feel like they're done biting.
You talk about marlin eating tuna. Probably about a 20-pound yellowfin on a cedar plug daisy chain one time, which is just looks like cigars, and they just do all kind of sporadic stuff in the water. And I was wiring up that 20-pound yellowfin in the back of the Lady Inn, and about a 500-pound blue marlin ate the yellowfin out of my hand.
God.
Yeah.
We had him on.
That's something that's a memory that'll stick with you for a little while, I'll bet.
Oh yeah, I have several of those. Yeah.
Well, I was on one boat, and the other boat, it was a real good friend of mine, his son, and Connor's. I think Connor's 12 now, but I've been fishing with him for probably 5 years, and he's caught everything you can catch. But he had the fish hooked, and he was on front of the boat, and he was holding the rod, and he was like, "Oh, I got it." He wasn't in the belts or anything.
Dang.
It was like on I think it was like a Torsa 40 he was on. That's what they usually fish with.
Mm-hmm.
And the fish ate it, and he was holding it, and it was just ripping line off. And finally, he told his dad to come up there and get it, and I saw him grab it, and that's when the fish broke off.
Oh no!
But it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's
I'm
cool.
sure he enjoyed it.
No.
They actually left from me, and they went to Venice. They have a camp there, and the next morning they went out somewhere just west of the river, and they had. I mean, before 9 o'clock or 9 or 10 o'clock, he was talking on the phone to me. They were so close. They had good service.
Dang.
And they had, I think, 9 yellowfin in the box, and they had lost one swordfish and caught another one.
Dang, where were they catching those tuna? Still over to the side of the river?
They were over to the west side of the river. I don't know exactly where they went to, but I think they went west of the river.
Cool. Let's talk swordfish a little bit, man. I know you guys had a little bit of bad luck, but tell us about it anyways.
Yeah, I mean,
y'all were daytiming, right?
I have a few feelings about it. I feel it's bad luck, but I also don't feel as bad about seeing some of them swim away, because I really like when they, just the bite and hooking them, and just that the fight, and then especially when you get to see them, it's cool.
Yeah.
The bite was good. We pulled up. We didn't spend a lot of time. We tried 2 spots. We pulled up and made a couple of short drifts. We got a little some kind of bite. I don't know if it was a tile fish or maybe like a pomfret or something. It was some kind of, it took a pretty good little bite out of it. We
Squid.
And then we moved to further east, and we went to and we as soon as we pulled up, I dropped a bait. I rigged a squid up and dropped it. And as soon as we made it just a minute, and I told the guys on the boat, I was like, we're about to catch one. And he was like, you think so? And I didn't get it out of my mouth just a second. The rod tip jumps, and I'm like, oh yeah. And the fish was it was rough, but the fish was, he was really, hitting. He was really after the bait. He was hitting it hard. I was reeling, and I could feel him yanking on the bait. And so that's, that doesn't happen a lot. And I'd kind of drop it back to him, and he finally, that fish, he had it for a minute, but once we got it tight on him, but the fight, he only was on there for just a few minutes, and he'd come off, which is not unusual. I lose a lot of fish. That's something to expect if you're going to get into sword fishing, is losing a good bit of fish. And then, I had another bait ready, so I sent it back down, made another drift, and just about, probably within 20 or 30 foot of that last bite, I got bit again, and that fish ate pretty quick. We had him to the boat in about 15 or 20 minutes, and I think we were probably trying to look at the fish a little too much and wasn't paying attention to where he was at, and he kind of got under the boat. His tail was sticking out, and I probably could have gaffed him in the tail, but I didn't want to do that, so I waited, and he swam off from the boat just a little ways, and just as soon as he turned his head, the hook pulled out, and he just took off.
Dang.
So he got to live another day. He was probably about 80 pounds, so he was a legal fish, but
that's a good one to let go.
Yeah, he was a good one to let go.
For sure.
Trying to catch the big ones.
No doubt. How deep of water were you guys fishing in? Still around that
we
12
were at
to
1,500 foot.
Nice. Just think about that, Captain Bobby.
Yeah, how do you set a slip cork to that depth?
Right. Be a lot of rod.
Yeah, we can't measure that off.
I use a cork sometimes out there.
Really?
Pretty interesting. Yeah. It's a different technique, and sometimes if everything's right, and most of the time if I'm using it, the bite's not real good.
Right.
I'm just trying something else.
It was kind of an inside joke from our last segment. We were talking about setting a slip cork with Butch. So.
Yeah, trying to set the depth.
It drives me crazy to fish with a slip cork inshore, because I always, even myself, I stay tangled up with it. I'm just not good at it.
Oh man, I'm telling you, them things are torture.
I use that buoy offshore. I have my line set to certain depths, and I have a buoy on it. I rig my bait a certain way for that buoy, and you'll be fishing along, and that buoy will pop up, or it'll do something different, and you'll have one on it. So that's pretty cool. It's a different technique.
So you're using the buoy as a sort of an outrigger, kind of like a balloon rig?
That's right.
Okay, cool. That's cool.
Same technique as night fishing. You could use balloons at night to get them away and separate them from the boat at different depths. And it's the same technique, but you just have to use something bigger since you have so much weight to hold the bait down.
Sure. That's cool, man. We appreciate that. It's a good report. Snapper season, man. Snapper season's coming up, Friday, 22nd?
Friday,
Yep, Friday, recreational season.
You'll be chasing any of those guys? You going to chase some snapper?
No, I'm going to stay inshore and let everybody else have it.
I heard that, man. I know you do a good bit of that. I'm sure you'll get your fill this year.
Oh, yeah, June 1st. Hopefully, I can fish as many days as I want after that, so.
Right.
I'm sure. Hopefully, I'll get my fill on snapper.
Hopefully, everybody does. Need some weather to cooperate.
Yeah, we need some good weather. The wind, rough water. People don't like to fish when it's rough. So.
No doubt. All right, man. We got to get that offshore tip from you. This week's offshore tip is brought to us by Advanced Transmission. When your transmission starts acting up, you always think the worst. And if you're not that skilled mechanically, you're at the mercy of the technician to tell you the truth about whether you need a complete overhaul. At Advanced Transmission in Spanish Fort, Alabama, customers are encouraged to view their transmissions being disassembled, and if unavailable, they'll send you pictures and videos of the process. Even better news is that over 60% of their repairs are minor, not major overhauls. At Advanced Transmission, all of their technicians are tested and certified through ASE and ATRA. Give the professionals a call who have been trusted on the Gulf Coast for over 25 years at 251-626-6061, or check them out online at www.advanced-transmission.com. Be sure to tell them you heard this ad on the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report for a 10% discount. What you think for an offshore tip this week, bud?
So my tip for the guys going out snapper fishing, looking trying to get a bigger fish or trying to, get a bite if they feel like they're not getting one as easy. It should be a lot easier this weekend. There should be fish everywhere, I would suspect. I fished some of the rigs on my bay boat just with some customers just looking for something to do one day, and we caught them pretty easily. We were fishing with croakers, but we wasn't using any weight at all. I'll take my trolling motor and spot lock it and, pitch those croakers back and let them swim down a little ways, and those snapper pretty much can't resist that. But, that's tackling down a lot, not using much weight, using lighter fluorocarbon on smaller hooks. And I use live bait, or you can, take chunks of red meat, especially a bonita, cut it up and chum with it. But also you can put a hook in it and throw it back and let it fall down with it. But, just tackle down, try something smaller. I guess it really depends on what you're fishing over, what kind of structure it is. If you know what it is, maybe fish with something smaller. And, something I like to do is I like to, stay as far away from I can from the wreck and try to chum and bring those fish to me. Chumming, they definitely they'll come straight to the boat.
Oh, yeah.
When they start coming to the boat, then catch them. Don't let them go back to the reef. Don't catch them right on top of it. But, just try something different. Don't do what everybody else is doing.
It's a great tip.
I think that'll be a good way to catch a big one.
Butch and I were talking about Dustin off the air. We were having a little conversation between segments and talking about trout fishing and tips. And I'm a very novice snapper captain. I've been on boats, or I've been the captain on the boat, but I don't really do the snapper fishing. And every little bit of everything you just told me right there was just brand new information to me. Brand new information. So that fits exactly what you and I were talking about, Butch, a little while ago, is I don't care how experienced an angler you are, you can always learn something.
Oh, man, no doubt. So, I learn every time I talk to anybody.
Everything he just said is brand new information to me. And so when I get if I'm hoping to go Saturday, when I'm going to go, I'm going to try exactly what he just said,
Yep. One of my favorite ways to catch those bigger snapper is get a smaller lead, 2 or 3 ounce lead, probably a 5/0 circle hook, a smaller circle hook. Put whatever you want on there. Put a live croaker, put a cigar minnow, and I just cast it up 30 feet in front of the boat, stick it in the rod holder. It'll swing back with the current. Game on.
Well, that's great information, man. That's.
So I've got they have that. I know they have a tournament this weekend for a big snapper. I think I can't think of all the information on it, but for those guys fishing it, what they need to do is get like a 2 or 3 ounce egg weight on put 80-pound fluorocarbon to braid, and pretty good circle hook, but a 3X strong, not real big, and hook a hardtail through the lips, a big hardtail, and kind of use that weight to down rig him and troll him over your snapper spots, get you a big one.
Yep, that'll do it too. That's a tip and a tip. I like it, man.
Good stuff.
All right, Captain Dustin, if people want to get up with you and get a trip soon, man, catch a swordfish or a snapper or a speckled trout or whatever they want to catch, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
251-377-7135 or fedupcharters@gmail.com.
Awesome, man. We appreciate the report. Always good to talk fishing with your buddies, man. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, Captain Bobby, that's another great Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, man.
It was, man. It's such a treat getting to do this, man. I like to listen to the whole report every chance I get, but being here doing the whole deal with you and getting to hear all the reports.
Get the whole experience.
The whole experience, too. It's just amazing how much information's out there with the different techniques and the personalities and everything else and the stories and everything else. Just it's a lot of fun, man. It's amazing. I'm sitting here looking at your clock, and I just can't believe that I've been here because the time just went by like it was nothing. It's unbelievable.
Always flies by when we're talking about fishing, man.
It does, man. So I tell everybody it's my second favorite subject.
That's right, no doubt. All right, man. We got to do What Did You Learn today? This week's What Did You Learn is brought to us by CCA Alabama. A great way to support the conservation projects like the Quad Petite Flounder and Speckled Trout Hatchery and the University of South Alabama Cobia Tagging Project is through the purchase of a distinctive CCA Alabama Saltwater Fishing's license plate. You guys head over to Alabama Department of Revenue's distinctive license plate page at revenue.alabama.gov to get yours. What did you learn today, Captain Bobby?
Well, I'll tell you, starting with Chris. Chris is such a wealth of knowledge, man, because he's been around. He's been doing it for so long in the area that he's at. He just knows, everything from outside to inside. But really got my attention, or really what I learned a lot from him, was how he fishes the stretch of water that he's talking about fishing, which is huge.
It's intimidating.
It's intimidating because it's huge.
Where do you even start?
Well, and on top of that, it's easy if stuff looks different. But if you're familiar with that geography, to me, it all looks
just
the same. Yeah, it looks the same.
Yeah.
So, figuring out where to start on a piece of water like that, or a piece of beach like that, to me, that was an invaluable tip that he threw out right there. And it was second nature to him. But if you really have to listen to those kind of things, because that's a real important tip that he threw out right there. And then certainly with Patric, I guide pretty much roughly the same areas. We kind of guide roughly the same areas, doing the same type of thing. And what he was talking about, we talk a little bit, we'll talk about in a second about downsizing, but he was talking about upsizing the hook from what I use, and then going away from a weight to use. Basically, he's talking about using the hook. He didn't put it this way, but he was talking about using the hook as the weight. Bit. Yeah, right. Yeah, and so not having a weight. And then the other thing I thought about too, when he touched on this, is having that bigger 1/0 hook. He was talking about freelining his shrimp. You're very, very, very rarely going to ever gut hook a trout with a hook that big,
That's a great point too.
Yeah, so you catch a big fish, you can take a picture of them and let them go, which we're all doing now. Yeah. And then talking to Dustin as being a truly novice snapper fisherman, the exact opposite. He's talking about getting off the structure, fishing lighter tackle and smaller tackle, to catch a bigger snapper. Or even to me, you guys laugh at when I talk about 10 or 12 pound snapper. You guys are going like,
that's good eating size.
That's good eating size. Yeah. But to me, that's still a big snapper.
Big fish in
general. That's a big snapper, and but just some of the tips he threw out there, like pulling off the structure and bringing the fish to you, is stuff I'm going to try. So that's all stuff that I've been guiding for 40 years this year, and fishing. But it's all good information. I just learned a whole bunch. So you can still teach an old dog new tricks.
That's right, man. That's why I love this thing, man.
Yes,
I love you guys.
It's great.
How many years has it taken you guys to say the things that you're saying on these podcasts? And that's what's amazing to me.
Yep.
So much knowledge.
Well, and the things like I mentioned with Chris and even Patric and Dustin, it's just second nature to guys that are doing that. Yep. And you really, you need to kind of tune your ears in a little bit and listen to those kind of things.
Well, like the shrimp thing, I kind of backed him up.
Yeah.
Like, hold on, wait a minute.
Yeah.
all the time when you guys are talking, I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's right.
But pull something really cool out of everything.
It's good. It's good, genuine information, and it's no BS.
Yep.
This is what works.
That's right.
And we probably would all love to have. Well, here, give me a GPS number to go to. But there's so much more to it than that.
Oh my gosh,
and the stuff,
no doubt.
You start throwing that kind of stuff out there. Everybody wants snapper numbers. Well, if you're going to do what Dustin said to do, you can go to that same number and make a fool out of somebody else. Or Patric, if you go fish the same wreck or reef he's fishing, or rig, and he's doing what he's doing with that shrimp, and you're not fishing at the right depth with a slip cork or whatever, he's going to make you look like a monkey.
You're going to get hammered.
So it's a lot more to than just I'm doing air quotes
no
again,
doubt.
Just the spot, right?
No doubt.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been outfished a lot at the same spot where somebody else was waxing them.
Yep, we all have. Yep, that's right. It's happened to us. It's like friend of mine says it all the time. He says, you can see the show or be the show.
That's right, baby. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. All right, Captain Bobby. I appreciate you co-hosting with me this week, man.
Thanks for having me, man. It was a blast.
Good deal. All right, buddy. All right, folks. That's going to wrap it up this week. You guys please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like us to email you the show each week, head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. We'll talk to y'all next week.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like a horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com. And also, KillerDock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at KillerDock.com. That's KillerDock.com.
Also brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you could save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at FortifiedRoofingPros.com or call them at 251-973-9999. Also brought to you by Hilton's Real-Time Navigator, bringing you the highest quality online satellite fishing chart since 2004. Your source for sea temps, altimetry, currents, and watercolor at Hilton'sOffshore.com. Also brought to you by MDH Foundation Repair. If your home was experiencing foundation problems, MDH Foundation Repair has the best solutions to fix it right and fix it now and protect your most important asset, your home. Check them out at mdhfoundationrepair.com.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Captain Bobby Abruscato, and A-Team Fishing Adventures. If you want to get in touch with us, book a trip, or just pick up some information, check out our website, which is www.ateamfishing, all one word, ateamfishing.com. You can book a trip there or get some great information.